back.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the ZTB podcast. So I'm Manny.
And I'm Hector.
Guys, this is episode number 2 of the Zoltank Boys podcast channel. Real quick before we take off, don't forget to smash that like, subscribe button. That lets us know that you like what you are seeing.
Yes.
Hector, let them know what this episode's going to be about.
So this episode is going to be about our past experiences with aliens. We're talking a little bit, diving more deep into aliens and different options and topics.
There's options to the aliens. Can you
there's
customize
multiple
them?
different species we could talk about.
So in this episode, we're gonna dive into a couple things. Number one, do we think aliens are real?
Mm-hmm.
Aliens and UFOs. Not just that. Me and him, we were roommates for a very long time.
Oh yeah.
And we've had a lot of experiences with UFOs.
Yeah.
And not just that, guys. And this is one reason why we started this podcast. We've had a lot of experiences with like paranormal and just weird stuff. But for the sake of this episode, aliens.
Yeah, we actually grew up in a kind of rural town. It's called Davenport, Florida.
Very small.
Yeah, not many lights out there, so you can see shooting stars almost every single night.
That's true.
You can see the stars so bright. So there's a lot of different things in the sky that you typically can't see being in a big city that you can see in Davenport.
Yeah.
So
and Davenport is one of those cities that's up and coming, is super small. As of recent years, there's been a lot more development, but when we grew up there, there was literally 1 or 2 middle schools, maybe 1 high school.
Mm-hmm.
We were the first graduating class of our high school, just to give you some insight as to how young this town was.
Yeah.
So I guess before we jump into it, I want to ask you, Hector, and then I'll tell you my kind of what I think. Do you think UFOs/aliens, extraterrestrials, things that are not from this planet, do you think those are real?
I mean, for me, my opinion is that I feel like it is real. It's kind of hard not to believe that we have such a vast open space universe, etc., and there not be some other type of life aside from us here on Earth. So I believe there are aliens.
So when we say aliens, do you believe in the little gray guys?
I mean, that's what you're conditioned to believe is that aliens look like little gray guys. But I mean, aliens could be anything from the little gray guys to beings that look like us. I mean, we won't know until we actually come across one. But I mean, it's hard to believe that we're the only sentient beings, in the whole wide universe.
Yeah. So here's my take on it. And I saw this guy shared this analogy, and when I heard it, I was like, dude, that's insane. This guy, broke it down to me like this. He said, imagine if you grabbed a cup, okay, you filled it up with water, and you put one fish in that cup. And imagine if I gave you that cup and I said, Hector, that's it, that's all the fish on the planet. Would you believe that?
No.
Exactly. So here's what I mean by that. And I'm not trying to convince anybody that there's aliens, but the reason I believe in aliens is because our universe, and I'll say universe, I won't even say solar system because we could even microanalyze it like that, but like our universe is so big, and our technology is at a very premature infantile stage. For us to believe we're the only creatures here. We're going to talk about that new telescope that was developed and what it revealed, right? But it's hard for me to fathom that we're the only people here, right? So I believe in aliens. I do believe in religion as well. So I don't think that because you believe in aliens or extraterrestrials or ETs, you can't have the domesticated thought of religion and or organized religion, which, that's another topic conversation. But I do believe in UFOs and aliens. Now, for this podcast, we're going to talk about a couple specific experiences that you and me have had.
Of course, yeah.
Right? I mean, this isn't hearsay. This isn't stuff that our neighbor told us. These are things that you and me experienced as individuals. Mm-hmm. Right? So, before we jump into that, Andy, because once we go down that rabbit hole, guys, we're going, right? Yeah. We have our tinfoil hats already made. No one's going to read our mind. Anything you want to say before we jump into that?
I mean, I feel like this is going to be a pretty awesome experience, kind of showing everyone else the experiences that we had. And I mean, it's a learning experience too. On top of that, like this is something that not many people get a chance to talk about. So I mean, I'm ready for it.
Cool. Now, before I jump in, I think it's really cool that back in the day, if you talked about this topic, you were crazy.
Yeah.
Like you were loony. I mean, I remember when we were younger, we would all talk about like, yeah, I believe in that, but we wouldn't talk about it in public.
Yeah.
You wouldn't tell people that because then they would look at you a little weird, right? So if you're weird like us, leave a comment, let us know some of your experiences. Heck, we'd love to interview you and see how it stands up next to our crazy stuff that we've experienced.
No, definitely. I mean, I think that'd be pretty cool to hear you guys' side and take or experiences on the craziness of aliens, right?
Yeah. So our first experience actually happened. If you watched our first episode, I talked briefly about a property that I renovated in Davenport, right? So this property was in a gated community. I won't say the name of the neighborhood, but it was in a gated community in Davenport, Florida. And in this neighborhood, they were still developing properties. They were still building homes. So while you had, it was a huge neighborhood with little neighborhoods within it in a golf course community. So I remember my property was a 3,500 square foot house. If you remember, it was going to be a flip, right? So it was completely empty, right? It had two living rooms in the bottom, a dining room, and it was all open floor plan, huge glass windows in the back, so you could see from the front door all the way to the back.
We barely had furniture in that house.
No, there wasn't.
There were rooms that were just empty, just big
empty
rooms that just had nothing in them.
Yeah. So, and I remember I didn't want to live in that house by myself when I bought the property because it was so big, right? And I called Hector. Hector at the time lived in Miami, and I said, "Hey, dude, I got this house." We were roommates before that a while back. Then he went to Miami, and he said, "Yeah, I'll come up. Let's do it." So I remember. So just to paint the picture, you have the house. Behind the house, you had a decent sized backyard. It was not fenced. Then you had a big conservation that ran from side to side.
Yeah, it was like I want to say maybe it was like 10, 20 feet.
No, it was way more than that. Way more.
So?
Oh yeah.
Well, anyway, it was just
you could rent a jet ski. When it was full, you could rent a jet ski.
Yeah, it was a flow of water, and then you had another community that didn't have a fence or anything like that, and they didn't even build any houses.
They weren't built.
It
was just sand.
Yeah.
It was because remember they were still selling these homes. So I remember at the time I had just bought the house. The house was completely empty, and I remember. We'll start at the beginning, right? So do you remember when we used to walk the dogs? So I have two dogs. I have a pug and at the time we had Nixon.
Yeah.
Remember Nixon? He was a little mutt. So we would walk him and we would always hear these bangs underground. Do you ever remember that?
Yeah, I do.
It was like these hollows, like somebody was banging under our feet.
Yeah.
And like it was hollow. And there was a point where I was like, man, like it feels like we could go through this floor. And there wasn't a sinkhole because I had the property checked for sinkholes. I just bought the property, and none of my neighbors experienced any issues. But you always heard these big metal bangs under your feet every once in a while, and it was always at night.
It was like something was gonna like bang out of the concrete, like it was just
underground, like a huge hollow
yeah.
bang always. So we always thought that was a little weird. So I remember one night. I mean, how late would you say it was?
I mean, I think what, like almost 10?
It might have been 10.
It was definitely dark though. It was dark. The stars were out.
Remember this is a brand new development. I mean, there's barely any street posts, right? So it's very dark in this neighborhood, aside from the little lights they had.
Yeah.
And I remember vividly, we pulled up. What was the first thing we saw when we pulled up? You remember?
A light.
So when we pulled up to the house, the front door was a glass door. Okay, so you could see right in. But when we pulled up, everything was black outside, right? But the inside of the house was neon blue.
Like it was vibrant. It was
like
pretty.
Like 100% neon blue. That the fact, I mean, you could see the light peering through the glass to the front, and it was to the point that when I pulled up, I said, "Dude, there might be somebody in the house."
Yeah, because we were cautious when we went in.
Yeah, we walked in thinking there's a criminal in there, or maybe some homeless people got in there, maybe some kids broke in to throw a party with lights. Like my whole house was neon blue on the inside, and we saw it from the reflections of the windows, of the door. So I remember pulling up, and I looked at Hector, I'm like, dude, we have to go inside and see what's up, right?
And just to paint a picture of the sky was literally just pitch black. When I say there was not a cloud in the sky, nothing, there was no airplanes, nothing. It was literally pitch black.
Yeah. So I remember we opened the door, and mind you, it's silent. It's literally silent in the neighborhood. We're walking up cautiously to the door, and we open the door slowly because if there's somebody in there, we wanted to creep up on them, right?
Yeah.
So we go in, and we're in the house now. Just to paint a picture, I'm standing right here. Straight across from me would have been all the way down a huge window with sliding glass doors overlooking the conservation in the backyard.
In between the living room and the kitchen.
We can't see it, that window.
Yeah.
Right? We can't see it because
Pitch
the
black.
because the lights are so bright. Remember, the lights were so bright that we couldn't see all the way through because the house was blue on the
I
inside.
thought you were talking about like on a
Regularly, yeah.
Right.
Regularly you wouldn't because it'd be pitch black. But that night, like we couldn't even see out the door. So one of my thoughts was, maybe they're looking for a criminal. Maybe there's a helicopter beaming through the sky or something.
We didn't even see any.
And there was no
helicopters or
noise.
Nothing, no.
Because you would have heard something, right? There was no noise, but the house is blowing into it. So we're in there, we're looking around, and then we're looking for somebody. We find nobody. So then we go upstairs, and now we're starting to get weirded out, right? We're like, this whole house is blue. We're running in here. There's blue lights everywhere. We run upstairs. We go through the rooms.
Well,
now,
gotta,
mind you,
you got to let them know. As soon as you get up the stairs, there's a second living room.
Good call.
And then there's two doors, which they have shades that are built into the doors. What's French doors? There are two French doors, and
which are glassed out, similar to almost downstairs, but not that big.
So then we go upstairs, and then we see the bright light. Like the bright light is like shining straight into your eyes as you're going up the
As
stairs.
we're going
Like,
up the
you
stairs.
have to squint a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how bright it is. And but I just wanted to paint that picture for you.
So we go up the stairs, we look around everywhere. There's literally nobody in the house. And at this point, I'm like, I'm gonna open these doors, and we're gonna walk outside. And if there's a helicopter, we'll see it.
Yeah, of course.
If there's somebody being silly with lights, I mean, we'll see it, right? Literally, guys, we open the door. The moment we step out, the moment the door opens, pitch black.
Literally, like nothing was ever there. Like literally, go outside because when you go outside those doors, there's this very long balcony that goes across from one side
On
of
the
the house
second
to the
floor.
other house, to the other side of the house. And as the moment that we opened the door and we were about to step our foot out there, like you said,
Pitch black. And I don't think when we first walked in the house we thought about aliens, right? I mean,
No.
we probably thought it was kids or
I mean,
or
and, you know,
helicopters.
sometimes you know, there's people who do construction late at night and they have those very, very bright lights. Maybe they had them across the conservation pond or whatever the case would be. But yeah, no, it's just.
We open the
crazy.
doors, pitch black. So now me and him are on the deck, on the outside, looking around.
Everywhere.
Man, it's pitch black. We're on the deck. We look at we see the stars. We see the pond a little bit, as if nothing happened. Right. So that was the first time where we felt a little. I mean, I felt a little weird.
Yeah, you would bring it up every once in a while.
Yeah, I'd be like, it feels a little odd. That was a little strange, right? So at that point, we just had that experience. We kept hearing a lot of the banging underground when we're like a block away, right? We're walking the dogs and we keep hearing these hollow bangs. That's two things that have happened there. And at the time, I remember we used to throw these parties in the house. And when I say parties, we're not talking about like crazy high school parties. We're talking about like family would come over.
Yeah.
We would do some karaoke. We would grill.
Dominoes,
And
drinks.
I think I told you about this, that there'd be many times when I'm there grilling by myself while the family's inside, and I would look up and I would feel like somebody was watching me. Like I felt that a lot of times.
I remember the one time that you were making barbecue chicken.
Yes.
I was sitting down in one of those beach chairs that we had in the back, and then you would tell me, like you told me. I think that was a little after I had moved out at that point. We sat down, you invited me to the party, I ended up going.
Like I always felt like somebody was watching me in that house. And it wasn't like a ghost or nothing. It was like I would look up and I would look around and I was like, I feel like something is out, something weird's out there, right? Now, not too long after, this is before you moved out, one day me and him are walking the dogs. Maybe a couple months later, right? They're still developing property in the back, so it's still relatively empty. And I remember we never took the dogs on leashes in the backyard. We would open the door and the dogs would just run outside. And I remember one night, me and him were just hanging out there, literally just staring at the stars, just chatting. The dogs are using the bathroom, and there was this bright light. You remember that?
Oh yeah, of course.
So there's a bright light, and I'm like, this light looks a little different than all the other stars.
Because we used to always, after that, we used to always see like the airplanes go by,
Yeah,
and we used to
yeah.
always think, oh, that might be an alien. That might be an alien.
Yeah, because of what we're about to tell you.
Yeah.
So I remember we're out there, we're looking at this bright light, and this light looked, excuse me, you know when you see a star, it's so far away, but it's so bright, right? So it looks like literally like a piece of salt that's glowing. This thing wasn't that far. It was close enough that you could tell it was really, really bright, and it wasn't that far. It could even be inside of our planet. That's kind of what it felt like.
An atmosphere.
In the atmosphere, yeah. And we're staring at this thing, and all of a sudden I told Hector, wouldn't it be crazy if this light just like was an alien and it like zapped across, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happened next?
It just started like moving, like chaotically, just
Irrationally.
Yes.
Guys, we have not talked about this. Like whenever we do some of these, like this is only a second episode, but like for this episode, all we agreed on was talking about the experiences. So we haven't pre-planned this. This is borderline, like almost improvised, right? Without the topics that we're talking about.
Yeah. To be real, guys, we honestly just we thought it was fun the first episode, so we decided to just make this second episode, even without any facts or anything like that, just us talking about our experience, just.
Yeah.
You know, because it was fun the first episode, so.
So we're out there, we're looking at this light, and I tell him, dude, imagine if that zapped across the sky. Clockwork. The moment I said that, this light started moving irrationally. And in my head, I started to think, if that was a plane, anybody who's in that plane would be Jello.
Oh yeah. I mean, and we don't have any technology that can move that erratic. I mean, obviously smaller things like drones or what you can see, but to have
even a drone would not move that fast. The way that it zapped, it was borderline laser quick. I mean, it went from here to here to here. I mean, literally, me and Hector, we don't know what to do. Right? We're like, oh my God, like we're literally lost. And I remember telling him, what did I tell you? Do you remember? I said, pull your phone out.
Oh yeah. So here's one thing that I can say that it's kind of crazy. Typically, whenever you hear that people see Bigfoot or people see this, first thing in your head is like, oh, why didn't they take
Why
a
didn't
photo?
you record it?
Why didn't you record it? And we lived it. Like we to the point where like we had our phones inside the house.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. We had them in our pockets.
No, I had my phone in my house.
I had my phone in my pocket, and I remember I pulled up my phone. I pulled up my phone to record, and my phone was like died, and it was full of charge, and my phone dead. And that's when I said, Hector, get your phone. Sucker grabs his phone, and is
and
dead.
Mine died too, yeah.
So we're there trying to record this thing. Our phones both are dead magically. This thing goes whoom, whoom, and all of a sudden, so on both sides of the conservation was woods, heavy woods, right? It literally went bam, bam, and then right into the woods. And in my head, I'm like, let's assume that's not an alien. If that's a plane, that plane just crashed.
Sure.
Just because of the way it just zapped all the way down. It wasn't a shooting star because the way that it literally was floating for literally a while we were out there, and then it moved with intelligence. Like it wasn't like a meteor that if you saw a meteor would just go one way, or a drone would move around, but it wouldn't move with that viscosity that thing moved.
Mm-hmm.
And it lands in the woods. And at that point, me and this guy are like, what's going on? Like, what is going on? So that's the third thing that happened in that same property. Ever since then, I always felt like somebody was like
it was an eerie feeling.
we were being watched.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these phenomenons always happen in very secluded, woodsy. Alaska has a lot of these things, right? Because it's by itself, right? So that's when I started feeling, man, maybe something weird is happening. You know?
And your neighborhood is one of the first neighborhoods in that area because I remember growing up, it was like just straight woods.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing there. Like what I mean, like we lived in the country area.
Oh, it's country.
It's pretty country.
Country.
Like it's not too far fetched that you instead of seeing like gangs like Crips or Bloods, you're seeing gangs of rednecks.
You used to see cowboys at Applebee, like their horses parked outside while they went to eat inside, right?
Yeah, the people to fear in our high school were rednecks.
Yeah, that's just what it is. Again, now it's way more developed, right? It's actually borderline a little city almost with all the development that it has.
Which I mean, I live there now. We actually bought a house there, so it's definitely developed a lot more. There's a lot more shopping centers, a lot more things to do. Whereas before, like, it's not uncommon that the main road people use were dirt roads.
Yeah. All right, so let's recap a little bit, right? So in that property, we always heard the banging underground. We saw the thing in the sky. The blue lights in the property. So this next part, I'm gonna ask you, we haven't talked about it too much, but what always happened to you in that house? Because this could borderline go into something else, but it might not. It might not. So what always happened in that house to you that you would always come out and be like, oh my God, what is this? This keeps happening. Tell the people.
Like, what do you mean in a sense?
What? You used to wake up with something.
Oh, scratches. I would always wake up with some type of scratch, and I'm not like when I'm asleep, I'm dead asleep.
You give people so people understand you're not a little guy.
No, I'm a bigger dude. Yeah.
Like how tall are you?
6'2".
I mean, you weigh almost 300 pounds. Like you're not a little kid.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So go on.
So like I would be sleeping, and then sometimes in the middle of the night I'll just feel like a heat, just a quick heat on my back or my side or something like that, and it would wake me up. And then I would go to the bathroom and I'd look, and I'd get these scratches all over my back and my sides. And then I'd ask him, like, did you leave the dog in my room or something like that, just to kind of realize, like,
to get some knowledge.
Yeah, because like when I sleep, I'm dead asleep. I don't move. Like I do not move. I don't I stay like a log on the bed. Like I do not move. So to get all these different scratches, and there's no nails or there's nothing sharp around me. Like, where am I getting these scratches? And it would happen constant. Like it didn't stop until I moved out. Like it would happen constant.
Have you had that experience in any of your other properties?
No.
Since moving?
Never.
Okay. And not to get into the paranormal, but did you ever feel that it could have been paranormal at any moment, or did you always have that mindset that it might have been associated with X, Y,
So obviously, you know, if you ever watch any of those like paranormal shows and stuff like that on TLC, you know, sometimes you see people they get scratches and stuff like that. But like in that moment in time, the only thing that I've ever witnessed or experienced were like alien-like scenarios. So I didn't really picture me getting scratched by like an entity or anything like that. Like I automatically assumed that, oh, yo, we got aliens coming in the house while we're sleeping or something, because, you know, this is crazy. Like I don't like I got all these scratches on me, and I bite my nails. I have no nails, so.
Yeah. So a lot of weird things happen there. So I'll tell you one thing that happened in that neighborhood, and literally we had all the neighbors out, and everybody saw it.
Oh yeah, when we were all hanging out, yeah.
So we're all hanging out. My dad was even in town for that. We're all on the second floor patio hanging out, and I see what I would interpret as a saucer, like middle of the day, right? So I see this thing, looks like exactly what you've been preconditioned to think an alien saucer is.
Yeah.
A disc with a little dome.
It's pretty close too.
Super in the sky, but close enough that I can kind of make it out a little bit. And at first I was like, is that a plane? Could that be a plane? And after looking at it for some time and how fast it was moving and the shape of it, there was no lights on it.
Well, it was clear enough where you could see that it didn't have an outline of a plane.
Yes,
It
no,
was
correct.
literally smooth.
It was a circle. It was a saucer. And I videotaped it. I videotaped it so much to the point that when it left my peripheral, I went outside. You were there, and we were on the street, and a bunch of neighbors were.
Everybody
was
came
on
out
the
of
street.
the house.
Filming
Everybody. Like people were seeing it through their windows, and
Yeah.
they just started to come out. Like it was everybody. So, you know, it was identifiable enough to know that it wasn't an airplane when you have the whole entire neighborhood coming out filming.
Literally, people were in their cars with their phones out, slowly driving. I walked almost to the front of the neighborhood following this thing. My dad was. I mean, everybody was there filming this. What I could only call a saucer, right? And at the speed that it was moving so fast that at one point, like I was borderline running, right, to just try to catch it, right? And if you've ever seen a plane in the sky, you've never seen it just dash, right? It's always moving, but from your location, it's not like that fast.
It almost, with airplanes, it almost seems like they're standing still as you're moving. They're not moving as fast, but enough where you can see. Like you don't have to break your neck to see it. But with this thing was moving quick.
Yeah. So those are a couple things that happened. Now, what I want to do real quick, and I do have a couple other things that I want to talk about regarding experiences that I've had. Hector, pull up a little bit of that information on that telescope that they just released, right? Because that's really interesting. I have a buddy of mine. He has a really high-end telescope. He's always sending me pictures of galaxies and nebulas and X, Y, and Z. I mean, super high definition, right? And I was like, dude, that's insane. But Hector, talk a little bit about this telescope. And guys, if you've experienced anything like this regarding, maybe you've seen things with aliens, or maybe you don't believe in them at all. Maybe you think this is stuff that's just coincidences. Leave a comment, right? I'm not one to try to talk into believing what I believe. Things I'm covering, and I know you're almost the same way, are things that I've experienced. No one told me about this. These are things that we experienced in that property, in that small little town. So leave a comment. We'd love to kind of get your feedback and see what you think. But go ahead, Hector.
So recently they sent out the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's the most advanced space telescope ever created. It's actually brought back photos that were nearly impossible to do with the Hubble telescope. The Hubble telescope is about 2 sizes larger than a human, like 2 to 3 times larger than a human, whereas this one is like 5 times larger than the Hubble telescope. So it's way more advanced, and it brings back some detailed pictures to the point where as you're zooming into these detailed photos, it doesn't digitalize like you would if you were filming or whatever the case would be.
And we'll put a picture of some of those images right here. Right, so we'll put a couple pictures. Just if you haven't looked it up, look it up. It's really, really interesting to talk a little bit about that. If you've never researched it, okay.
Yeah, and then I mean it's just a crazy advancement on things that we weren't able to see and how deep.
Does it show? Sorry to interrupt you. Does it show how many galaxies or items it caught on the first one? Was it thousands, millions?
One thing that's pretty cool is that it actually showed just how small we are compared to the actual different galaxies that are out there. Like, I mean, it showed millions and millions of different galaxies that were the size of a grain of sand compared to what was actually out there. And how detailed you were able to see them, you would think that would be like, that would be it. That would be the whole space.
Yeah.
But then once you zoom out, you start to see that it's just the most microscopic portion of space in general. So
yeah.
it was crazy. It was amazing. I saw the video the other day.
Yeah.
It was cool.
So something that to me was super, super impressive is if you look at the picture. First of all, it's not a picture of our universe. That's as good of a picture as we can get right now, right? Mm-hmm. And we're not going to get into the topic of multiverse and all the other dimensions and other stuff. We'll leave that for another day. But in that picture, I mean, Hector has a picture of it here, which again we'll put up. But you see, I mean, there's easily 100,000 galaxies in what I'm looking at. So then you see different shades. This is where it gets really, really interesting. So you see some that are yellow, you see some that are red, you see some that are purple, you see some that are white. And from the little bit of research that I've done, a lot of the ones that are different colors are on the back end of their life. Right? So some that might be a little redder, they might be older galaxies. Right? And if you look at the sizes of these galaxies, I mean, we live in our own galaxy. We live in the Milky Way galaxy, mm-hmm. right? In this galaxy, we have our solar system. Put that in perspective. We are nowhere near. This is the way that I think, and again, not trying to convince anybody, but if you put that in perspective, how many of these galaxies are out there, the difference in sizes, and what can be within those galaxies. Now, To ideate that there's intelligent life there, that's a different argument. To talk that there's life, well, they've announced that there's life in Mars, germs, right? So that's a that's a life on its own, right? So that to me was like, that's insane. And they keep releasing pictures of new things that they keep finding.
One that's pretty cool is that a lot of the times that you see photos from these telescopes and whatnot, they're actually infrared, they're advanced infrared photos. So basically, the infrared kind of switches the colors so that we can see it, kind of how like in reefing we have our lenses.
Yeah.
So basically, with the way that the telescopes are set up, they're able to depict what the colors of these stars and galaxies are looking like. When in actuality, if you were to see it with your naked eye, let's say you were in space and you were to see it with your naked eye, you wouldn't see any colors at all.
So what if we haven't found enough technology to filter through everything else that's out there?
That's nuts.
Right? So that's the first thing. And also something that's interesting, so many times when we see a star, by the time that travels to Earth, the visual and stuff, that star could potentially be gone. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the way it travels through light years and things like that. So that's why to me when they release those pictures, I'm like, if you're an alien enthusiast, if you're a UFO enthusiast, even if you're into astrology, planets, the solar system, the universe, that is crazy. That's crazy. So, I have a little article here. Excuse me, if you guys have been following the craziness with the C word, which I'm not going to mention, the crazy pandemic that happened, right? We had a huge, what was it, $3 trillion, let me see if I have it here. I believe it was a $3 trillion bill, a $2.3 trillion C bill, right? Which gave a lot of funding for unemployment, gave a lot of funding overall to help with the pandemic, right? So if you, and what I'm going to say next has nothing to do with politics, whether you like Trump, hate Trump, doesn't matter to me. But one of the things that Trump was big on was them releasing any type of data that they had on UFOs, right? So on December 27th, President Trump signed a $2.3 trillion C-19 bill, relief bill, that famously included a $600 stimulus check. As part of the 5,900-page bill, committee comment was attached to the annual Intelligence Authorization Act, which was to roll out into the massive bill. I clearly can't read, so bear with me, right? But in that bill, they had 180 days to disclose anything that they knew about.
Oh, I heard about that.
Anything that they knew about UFOs. Now, granted, I wasn't expecting, this happened probably March-ish. I wasn't expecting them to come out and say, hey guys, E.T., Alien versus Predator, they're here, right? But if you look at a lot of the information that was released, one thing they did release was acknowledgement, right? I'm reading another article here that talks about, the Navy, or is it the Navy? The military's UFO database now has info from about 400 reported incidents. Not just 400 reported incidents, about 143 out of those were in the last year, right? So it's definitely something that everybody is talking about. The question is, what would happen if they said it was real? You think we'd have mass hysteria?
That's what I feel like the government thinks, is that there'd be a mass hysteria and people wouldn't know how to handle themselves with the information that they received. So, everybody has an inkling. Everybody has an inkling that, there may be life out there. Whether you believe it or not,
But when we talk about life out there, to me that's almost like borderline given, right? What if that's not out there? What if it's here? What if we've been conditioned to think it's out there? You know what I mean? Like I always think, you said something earlier, which is we've been conditioned to think X, Y, and Z. So to me, when we had the big bird flu, the influenza, right? Alfred Hitchcock released that movie about the birds.
Yeah.
right? So a lot of times I believe Hollywood releases these things to kind of get you warmed up to the idea that something could be out there, or get you warmed up to, hey, if there is something out there, this is how you act. That's what I think, right? A couple years ago, we had War of the Worlds. Remember that one? Was it Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise, yeah.
The aliens were always inside. You remember that? The aliens didn't come; they were here. They came from underground.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? You go to other movies, Star Wars, one of the biggest franchises in history. Intergalactical travel. I think that's not too far-fetched. There's even been research on we have planes that break the sound barrier. CERN. I know CERN was a huge thing on TikTok talking about the collision of molecules at supersonic speeds to create potential black holes. I mean, again, we are at a very young state in technology regarding these developments. Yeah. So Star Wars, all these intergalactical travels on spaceships, traveling at the speed of light. There's so many movies.
One of the biggest things is like things that we are used to in terms of technology today were sci-fi 10 years ago,
for sure,
20 years ago. So we're always advancing. There's always advancement. So who's to say that we won't be able to get to that point to start to realize what the truth is and kind of be able to discover more things.
Yeah, so I read an article, and I think this deserves its own freaking episode, right? But they talked about how there's two things that don't make sense, right? The first thing is how the Egyptian society was as technologically advanced as it was, and then it wasn't. Mm-hmm. If you look at the development of the pyramids, it's humanly impossible for a human to make that. Humanly impossible without machinery. Mm-hmm. Could the aliens have made it? Maybe. But what if we did? What if we had the technology? What if we got too smart and they said, no, you're done. Leave a comment. That's crazy. That's rabbit hole, right? We're going down there. I saw another one, another theory that talked about monkeys, right? And I'll put the image right here. I thought it was, again, this is far-fetched, but I was like, who are we to know that this isn't it? There was a picture of, I'd grab it, but we're using the phone. It was a picture of an alien hugging a monkey, and the monkey was holding a human. Let me see if I could find it. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I have it on my phone. But, here it is. And I thought it was interesting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is...
There, you can see it there. I'll post a better picture of it here. That's good. So, what made me... I saw this and I just started thinking, and I was like, we talk about the missing link. When we look at evolution, when we look at all the gaps, DNAs, and again, this is something else we could talk about another day, but there's always that missing link. We see the monkey, we see caveman, and then we see evolution of caveman, but what's that missing link? Mm-hmm. A lot of people say, well, maybe it was aliens altering the DNA of monkeys, which is why there wasn't a evolutionary transgression. Mm. That's why we can't find that gap, that missing link as to how did monkeys get from here to here and why they're still monkeys. Again, completely different episode. But moral of the story is, I think there's a lot out there that we don't know. I think there's a lot out there that we don't talk about because of fear, mass hysteria. I think it would shake up everything that you know. Not because it's not real, just because it throws a wrench.
Yeah.
I think it would desensitize religion. I think it would desensitize the concept of life, afterlife, what's real, what's not. It's crazy, but I think that's why we don't know. 100%. 100%.
I see your head, Steven.
Are they reaching me? Should I put my tinfoil hat?
Wow, it just makes you think. Just seeing that photo alone, it's crazy.
Listen, I never even thought about it until I saw that photo. Right? I mean, even till today, we can bioengineer certain things. We do it in the reefing hobby all the time. Mm. We do it in the reefing hobby all the time. And for all the reefers, we do it. How many times have we grabbed a worldwide coral? Recently did it where they grabbed the red digitata, which is a coral, a stick coral with fuzzy little green hairs. They grabbed the red one and they glued them together And then now they grow intertwined. So now you have this coral that now it looks like it's bleeding red and green versus one or the other.
I mean, they do it in horticulture. They do it
all the time
with bugs,
flowers.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you're right.
And that's at our infantile level. Imagine if we had all this technology that no one ever talks about. You know, in the Egyptian pyramids, you know how many times they have found blueprints of computers?
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
You know, those, where'd it go? Where did that technology magically go? You know, so and you know, if you look at things in the Bible, all right. So I'm not going to go down that route because this could last hours. So this will be another topic. So going back to an experience that I had, right? Since we're kind of bringing it full circle. So I remember one time I fell asleep on the couch in that same house, and I don't know if I told you this, and this might have been sleep paralysis. This might have been. Maybe I preconditioned myself to think that there were aliens in that neighborhood. I don't know. But I remember vividly, I was sleeping, I couldn't move, my eyes were this big, and I saw 3 great aliens in the living room. Kid you not. Walking around, getting up close to me, looking at me. My girlfriend was on the other couch. She was sleeping. And it was like a L-shaped couch like that. So I was on this couch, she was on that couch. And I remember they were just staring at me, looking at me, walking around the room, looking at her. And then, like that, I woke up and it was like a gasp of air, like, and I was back in it.
Well, you got those, I mean, not to get off topic, but you got those weird things where, like, he can literally have a movie of a dream in, like, 30 seconds. And just tell us descriptively what happened in his dream. It's
You're
crazy.
right, you're right. You're right.
That's for another time, I guess.
But correct. There's so much stuff to talk about. But again, that could have been a version of sleep paralysis. Maybe I was preconditioning my brain to think that.
No, but I watched a documentary where people who have woken up in the middle of like abductions and stuff like that, they've had sleep paralysis. So they've seen the beings and they weren't able to move and stuff like that. Whether it was supposedly on the spaceship or whether it was in their room, whatever the case should be, they've had this sleep paralysis. So I mean, it's
well. So what's funny is I wasn't the only person who experienced that in that house.
Really?
I had an ex-girlfriend years ago that had that happen. In the middle of the night, she saw something, started screaming, and very similar experience.
Wow.
So again, I believe in religion. I believe in higher power, all that fun stuff. But I do believe in aliens and UFOs. I think there's a lot out there. I think you believe the same thing too. I think you were abducted.
I don't know. Until they erase my mind.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
That may be why I'm a little slow sometimes.
All right, guys. Well, that's gonna wrap up this episode of Zotank Boys ZTB podcast. Once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. We're really going to go through these comments to really see what you guys think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of great content that you guys come up with, right? Or feedback. You know, maybe you had an experience similar to maybe you saw something in the woods. Who knows?
Maybe you got a story about the Mothman.
Listen, there's so much stuff to talk about, guys.
Yeah.
But we're excited.
Yeah, and it's not just going to be about cryptid stuff either, guys. You know, we can talk about literally anything and everything. Like,
yeah.
If you guys have any topics you want to hear about, or maybe we can talk about, or maybe you have information yourself, facts and whatnot that you want to talk about, and we can express it for you. More than welcome. This is a platform for everybody, and you know, comments definitely do help for us to be able to kind of guide us in the right direction, see what you guys like. And with that being said, you know, we can't forget.
Yeah, so we're gonna place one of your comments right here. Let us know that you like what you're seeing, guys. Till next time. So, Tank Boys out.